My name is Nick Gant. I am a lecturer at the University of Brighton. I'm a design practitioner and co-founder of the Inheritable Futures Research Group, which looks at sustainability and the relationship between design practice, education and academia. I think having principles like this is very useful. It provides designers with, in a sense, a manual, and from an educational point of view I think things like this do help to kind of distill a lot of the complex information that surrounds sustainable design. Sustainable design can obviously, in people's minds, start to encompass everything from ethics to broader issues that really go beyond the remit of the designer, and I think things like this help to bring it down to a point where people can kind of utilise these things in a kind of practical way. I thought there were a lot of really useful kind of words in here, and my colleague Jonathan Chapman and myself have recently been putting together a framework ourselves, and there seem to be strong parallels here. And what I particularly liked about these principles is that is the kind of use of verbs, of kind of doing words. Again, the kind of default setting for people in sustainable design discourse or discussion is to move to not doing, to kind of anti-doing, kind of anti-consumption, anti-materialisation. Whereas this talks about the way that ideas might manifest and progress and grow. And I think expansion is a really interesting word in terms of sustainable design. Thinking about how a message or a core idea or something useful, practical or beneficial can actually kind of expand, which tends to go against that idea of things being kind of reversed back to a kind of basic point. Words like framing are really useful as well. Again, going back to that idea that as an individual there's only so much you can kind of be part of and activate and try and be progressive within, and to frame a problem is important, to understand its context, to understand the relationship that you have to that problem, and framing yourself, again, this idea that you can only do so much. So by putting yourself within a frame and understanding your parameters, you know what you can do and what you need to go and affect change elsewhere beyond yourself. So I think all of those kind of doing words actually are really useful in helping to kind of enact sustainability and getting people to drive things forward, rather than seeing it as a kind of ascetic process where you have to stop. Everything's about stopping. Stop design. Why design anything at all? If we're to be sustainable, those kind of considerations often come to bear. When in actual fact, what we're trying to do is design things more sustainably. So we need more sustainable design, not less. In practice, there is the kind of carrot and stick situation where you have new demand. There's a world out there now that's demanding ecological consideration and sensitivity, and I think students and people moving into that world can see, in a sense, an exploitative value in understanding those kind of techniques and the attributes that make somebody as a valued, sustainable designer within industry, because there's a market out there that is becoming more and more in tune with authentic, sustainable design and more authentic products, and therefore there will be a demand for designers to have those skills. So that's the kind of the carrot end of things. But also there's the kind of stick side of things, the increasing legislation, the basic cost of materials, inflation. All of those things are the enemy of people wanting to develop and produce products. So consideration of efficiency, dematerialisation, reduction, all of those things are valued. So these things are going to be imbued in all design practice, really. So for students to understand them is central, very important, basic, really. I don't believe in there being any one single way to deal with things. It's never going to work. The idea that everybody signs up to one idea. Creative people are not going to be able to sustain a singularity. It's just not in our nature. And I think we have to embrace the fact that different people would approach things in different ways. And I think that's good. That is a kind of abundance, you know, an abundance of ideas, a diversity of ideas that suit different contexts. You know, I can't claim to be a sustainable designer and know everything about all contexts and all situations to be able to design for that. I mean, it's a ridiculous idea. You know, cradle to cradle is a principle, like lots of large identifiable principles like co-design, of course have real value and real resonance. But it's more important that students can learn to be individual and to take their own interpretations of sustainable design out into the world and breed those ideas. You mentioned in the scales about getting to the good life, in inverted commas, and I think, you know, that it's kind of a cliche, that, but at the same time there is, I think, some truth in that. And I think there is, you know, I'm talking from my own perception, I think there is a sense that there's a need to retune ourselves from the old model of consumption is part of the way to a better life, and that our whole economy and our whole systems are based on the kind of 100-year-old Henry Ford kind of model, that we make things, we sell them, we make a profit, we expand, we do more and more and more and more, and that everybody buys into this singularity. And actually you get back to what is really important to you as a value. And then, you know, things can be purchased, things can be designed and made for that context and that individual. And one hopes that in that direct way that they link to the person, to the context in a good, strong way, there's a strong bond, then hopefully those objects and services and things have meaning, I mean, and can be sustained, rather than this kind of just cyclical process of consumption for what reason, for little reason really, other than that you can, or that it's just a very basic kind of form of self-expression, really, without really getting to the bottom of what's really important.